today's installment of Messed Up Plasticine Sculpting Tool Theater, we'll be doing some Tyranid armor plates. However, this is also transferable to Dark Eldar because Jess is a god and he put beautiful Tyranid plates on everything. So you get your hunk of green stuff, and the first thing you do is you grab your knife tool. Again, caveat, this is way bigger than an actual miniature, so this is going to be a little rough. But what you do is you just make some chevrons for your plates. Oh, that's already messed up. Oh god. I'm not as good a sculptor as you think I am. So you just do these chevron things like that. If this was to scale, you would literally be going like this, like this, like this, like this, and it would not be so big. It'd be very easy. So, actually that's probably a good plan. So you got like 3 plates there. So you cut it underneath, and then what I do, this is probably not what Hydra does because he's like the king of the sculpting of these things, is that you want to make them all at different levels so they kind of stack. So I take the spoon tool and I kind of push down underneath the plate. This can be smoothed out after, but you just want to give it an edge by pushing down the lower material. Like that. And then same thing, I'm so sorry that this is bust. Same thing on that side. Okay, so you kind of preserve your point, sort of. And what that does is it just makes it a little more 3D, because it has a gap under here now. So we'll do that for all of them. This will be cleaned up. Okay. So yeah. So that plate is higher than this plate, is higher than this plate, is higher than this plate, which it's not actually, but it looks like it because you did that. So you kind of have that angle. That angle extends to the edge of the plate. I've not done this in a long time, so if it comes out crummy, I'm sorry, but it's just like riding a bike, right? You can't forget. So yeah. So to scale, just like that. Well, I guess I should start at the top, but whatever. This one. Okay, here you can kind of push it in too, like this, instead of just going down. Oh, I hate this material. This is not epoxy sculpt, this is not green stuff. It's not going to come out the same, but whatever. Okay, so there it is to scale. So you've got these pushed down. And then what you do is, whenever you're sculpting armor plates like this, be it on a Talos, be it on a Tyranid, it's always a dance of keeping the edges straight. I hate it. I love sculpting Tyranids and sculpting Dark Eldar homunculus stuff because you don't need anything to be symmetrical. You can just be like, oh, it's flesh! You know, that's what flesh is supposed to look like. So what I'm doing here is I'm smoothing these out with my finger because I don't have a smaller tool. But on these ones, what I do is I'd go like this. Just gonna get a flat edge there. Make sure this is lubricated with water, spit if you're gross, or any kind of lubricant that works for you. I recommend hand cream. If you listen to Simon, it is fett. The Hydra, he only sculpts with the best fett, but by fett he means it is hand cream. So I use Nivea, who cares, you can use whatever you want. Don't use scented stuff, it might be gross. So yeah, I'm just kind of like smoothing these out on top, and getting in a little bit underneath, so that's preserved. Smooth it out on top, you can smooth it out up here too. So yeah, here, smooth, 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 smooth this out, smooth this out, smooth this out. Smooth that out. Okay, and then you go in with this thing and you clean up the edges. So you can take the flat part of it and use it as your flat edge tool. So just kind of go along the edges, flattening them up with it. Like in micro, it would look like this. Boop. 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 Using that flat part to make sure the edge of the plate is flat. Like that. And yeah, and then you can like cut it back underneath to make them like that. If you want them to look old and a little bit of like grizzled, I don't like it, but you might. You can make them more bony by taking something like this, a ball burnisher tool, and making these kind of like lines in them, so it looks more kind of bony and not as like smooth and perfect. So it kind of gives it a bony texture where it ripples. So just kind of do stuff like that. In micro, that looks like this. Just gonna go coming in from beneath the previous plate, and then you go in with something like your elevator wax spiel carver tool and kind of like smooth them out, or you use, if you're next level like me, you use a silicone brush, because silicone brush is your friend. Look at that, it like disappeared. Look at this crap. Yeah, you can even, if you have like a small silicone brush, you can do two birds with one stone. You can go in like this and get that kind of boniness, but then rub it down here, so there, and then just kind of fade it out here, because you don't want it ridgy all the way down. That'll mess with your painting. It looks cool when it's coming out from underneath. While you do this, things will shift. So you can always go back and recut them. But underneath, just like push them up a bit, and then reshape the edges. So push them up, cut in underneath, push them up again, reshape the edges like this. Keep that edge straight, hard. And then the next step is that, like, once you're cool with them, you want them to go back in under the plate over top. So you want something like this, and like this. So this is the edge of the plate. This is probably where the model is going to be, right here. This is like the edge where the skin is on the model, and then you got your armor plate. So there's your edge. So you come out and then you shoot it back in. So this one is, if there's another plate there, it would be going like this. So there's the edge of the plate, the same thing here. So again, skin, armor plate. You can line them up more specifically, like this one can shoot in there and this one can literally line up right at the edge. If you don't want to see how they don't overlap, well, if you don't want this extra bit sticking off the side. So on here that looks like, usually what happens with Tyranid plates is that they're bigger at the top, they're smaller at the bottom. This looks messed up. This should really be like this. This goes like this. So what you would do here is that this is the smallest plate, so it goes in like that. This is the bigger plate, it goes in like that. See that this is further out than this one, and this is the biggest plate, so it goes like that. And if there was still a larger plate, it would be here and like that. And anyway, you get the idea. So for these ones, if this was to scale and this was the largest plate, this is perfect because it comes out, but this one should cut here. So that's bigger, sticks out further. That's, I don't know if you saw that. That's bigger, that sticks out further. This is smaller, this one smaller still. And again over here would come like here. So this one's got to be biggest, smaller, smaller. That, in fact, is probably them getting something's messed up here. Still smaller. So yeah, bigger at the top, smaller at the bottom. Please God, don't make these armor plates point the wrong way. They point towards the tail, away from the head, on all Tyranids everywhere. If you put them in the wrong direction, I will know about it and I will hunt you down. It will look really bad. You might not notice, but Tyranid players will notice and they'll just shake their heads. They'll be like, yo, like what are you doing? Alright, so that's armor plates. I don't really know what else I could tell you. Like, if you want them to be, this is a very flat plate, if you want them to be more raised, you just go in here with a knife and you just pull them up. Just pull them right up. Like, get right in there and then flip them up. Get right in there, flip them up. Get in, flip them up from here. If you want them more raised. Don't get them too raised, it looks bad. But if you want them raised a little bit. And then underneath detail, you want some connective tissue. You just get your silicone brush and kind of get in some connective tissue there. You don't have a silicone brush, go out and buy one, but if you're cheap, use a ball burnisher tool. put some connective tissue in there, so that looks kind of like this. You go in there, and then you kind of, anyway. Or if you're really cheap, you can literally get a nail, sand it down, and go in there with that, and kind of, oh, that's once you've raised it. Once you've raised it, you go in here, and you do the connective tissue in there. Just kind of like that. Yeah, there's not much else to Tyranid plates. If you really want them to be like serrated, is that the word for it? Where they've got like lines on them, you just take one of these and you just lightly go like that. Actually, a couple of these on Tyranid plate makes it look good. Don't put too many. Please, God, don't put too many. I love Ed Forte. He's like a brother. He's an awesome dude. Puts way too many of these things on. Like if you're just like, yeah, that looks like the oldest Tyranid on the planet. And it's going to be tough when you're painting because you're going to try and put like a line down this and you're going to have to get around it. So yeah, just put a couple. A little goes a long way. You can put the occasional one here. Like look at that. 1, 2, 3. Maybe a little one there. Maybe a little one more there. 4. That's all you need. Everything else is going to be you painting. So don't worry about putting tons of these. But if you want it to look old and busted, put lots of these. If you want it to look even more busted, get something like a little ball burnisher and stamp like little dots into it, like little pits in the armor, or little things like this. Not that many. Don't do that. Then you'll be Ed. Just like little ones. Every so often, just put one. And it'll just, like a little bit goes a long way on a Tyranid. Don't make them symmetrical. Whatever you do, don't do that. That was bad. Yeah, so, and then if you really want to do next level, like cut out some of the armor plate. Be like, oh man, this guy just got smoked by a chainsword. This is no more. Get out of there. I don't even know if I'm still in the camera. And then just kind of, there. Dig in the armor plate so that looks, in micro, that looks like this. Just kind of like that. Take that bit out, and then just make sure you flatten it out. If you're ever having trouble, take this, pat them down like this. That'll make them flat again. And then like this, and then start again. And then pat them down like this. They're never going to be symmetrical. If you're really good, they'll be symmetrical. I am pretty good, and I still screw up. Like, these are not symmetrical. They're not Tyranid plates, but they drive me bonkers. But they look good enough. Yeah, so that's sculpting Tyranid plates. I don't really know what else to say. It's not that bad. Okay, let's try it in micro. Here we're going to look at the same process, except for do it in miniature. It's not going to be exactly the same, because I do things a little bit differently every time I do them. But yeah, here's what it looks like in miniature. And what I'm starting off with here is I'm creating a ridge down the middle of the piece of green stuff. So you can kind of picture it kind of like a very flat prism with that central peak. Also, another thing I do in this video a lot is pick up the piece of cardboard I'm sculpting on and goes completely out of focus. So sorry about that. But yeah, this is something we didn't do in the plasticine, but you can see it here on the green stuff itself. And this helps if you're doing like a ridge along like an arm or a leg or a back or something. Yeah, it's just flattening both sides on an angle, and then so it looks like there's a peak in the middle of the plate. So you can see here, like we did before, we're just using the knife tool to cut chevrons into the piece. You can already see it's not symmetrical, Mr. Pink. Good work. You kind of fucked that up. But sculpting's hard. So yeah, you'll get there. So the technique we're doing here, I'm actually going to show two different ones here. This is sculpting all the plates in one go versus sculpting plates individually. This is harder to do than sculpting plates individually because you have to get them all perfect before that piece of green stuff cures, whereas when you do them one at a time, it's a little more forgiving. So yeah, I've cut the chevrons in, and then I'm going with the spoon tool and kind of like flattening down the upper part of each plate towards the edge of the one before it, and that further gives the impression that we didn't sculpt these all flat, that they all have different kind of heights to them. Almost like the lower plate is tucking in below the upper plate. That's what we're doing here with the spoon tool. And it's going in under the chevron that we cut above. And here I'm just kind of smoothing it out because it got a little, because that tool I was using, the spoon tool, is convex. It made the plate a little less than flat. God, this is really horrible when I pick it up. Sorry about that. So just flattening the pieces here. Yeah, of course this is sped up because it's boring to watch this stuff and you already just watched it. So we're kind of rushing through it. Okay, now you can see it a little better. And this is just using the knife tool to flatten out the faces of the plate. Recutting. I do a lot of recutting. I do a lot of like flattening, and then they get too close together, and then I have to go through with the knife and kind of lift it up again along the edge, the cut between each plate. So this is another challenge of sculpting them all at once. So now I'm going with the knife tool and I'm putting the little, I think they're called serrations, lines on the plates to make them look a little weathered, a little older. I think I said in the other video, you don't want to overdo this or else the Tyranid will look really old, unless you're looking to make it very, very old. And I don't know how much I talk about this before, but we're going more Tyranid here. If this was just Dark Eldar armor, you would have just cut the chevrons, smoothed them out, and left them. Not done any of these little like holes, little lines. That was a ball burnisher tool I did use there to put a little some dents in the plate. And you can see it's just a lot of going back and like cleaning them up, going back, cleaning them up. You'll sculpt something in, and because green stuff is so like malleable and kind of squishy, it squishes into weird shapes. So you just gotta toughen up the shape. So what I'm showing you here is I'm showing you sculpting one plate on its own. And the benefit of this is that you can fuss with it for longer, and you can make sure you get like a little more control over the shape of it. Whereas in that previous version that we were doing, where we were doing the 3 plates at once, you don't have to rush, but you will run out of time if you futz with the plates too much. And also the case when you're sculpting 3 at once, you can do something to one plate and it could affect the plate below it or the plate above it. When you sculpt them one at a time, like this example, you don't have to worry about screwing up other plates, because what you do is you put a plate on, you let it dry, set completely, and then you sculpt another plate on top of it. So yeah, it's up to you. I tend to do the many plates at once if I just want to be quick. I have a tendency when I'm working on models and when I'm working on sculpting to do a little bit at a time, and it can get frustrating because you're like, oh my god, I'm doing these plates one at a time. So I would say if you're starting out sculpting, do it one plate at a time. That's the easiest way to do it. And then as you've done it a little more and you've gotten used to kind of like shaping the plates, putting the lines in them, getting the angles right, then you can experiment with that, what I showed you first, which is cutting all the chevrons in and doing a bunch of plates at once. Because it's not that hard once you get used to it, but while you're getting used to it, do it like this. So what you're seeing here, I did one plate and then I'm putting another plate on top of it. What you don't see in this video is I should be waiting for that previous plate to dry before I put the second one on, and now I'm putting a third one on, and what is not pictured in this video is waiting for the previous plate to dry. I can't emphasize that enough, that if sculpting is giving you trouble, the best thing to do is go in small parts. Go in layers, do a little bit at a time. I don't know how much this video has helped. I hope this has helped. I didn't realize quite how unfocused it was. But yeah, hopefully it's helpful to see it in micro after you've seen it in macro. This has been how to sculpt organic armor for Tyranids and Dark Eldar and all those awesome Jesse models. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another video soon. I promise I won't make you wait as long this time. Thanks!